All right, welcome to episode 6. This is the Monk and the Mechanic. My name is Kylie. I'm the Monk.
And I'm Josh. I'm the Mechanic. And today we are welcoming Forrest. He is actually the sitar player that you hear at the beginning, at the end of our podcast. So Forrest is getting ready to take off and go on a long adventure. So we wanted to get him in here and talk to him before he took off. So Forrest, if you want to introduce yourself and give yourself a really great breakdown of how wonderful a person you are.
A little bio.
All right, a little bio. All right, so let's start off with what's most recent. Just graduated from UTSA, degree in geography and environmental sustainability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm a local San Antoniite. I have been a musician for about 5-6 years now. Very early on, was very interested. My dad was, he was the music lover in the family, and he brought me and my sister up on the Beatles, classic rock and roll. So all that was an influence, and then I picked up the guitar, and then I heard Ravi Shankar, picked up the sitar, and just a little background of.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So is that background, like listening to all the music when you were a kid, that's something that kind of made you go after it as a passion? I mean, it's a passion for you, right?
Totally. It was always a passion growing up, and I don't think I ever seized it until later, or really thought that it was something that I could actually get into, that I could actually do. It's like you hear these people on the radio like, oh, I can't do that. And then, now it's really not about that. It's really about finding that expression that feels like very genuine. And then that in itself is such a journey. But yeah, initially, it's kind of like, oh, dude, yeah, I love the Beatles. I want to, I love,
John Lennon.
Yeah.
And how old are you, Forrest?
I'm 25.
25, okay. So this is something that I bring up with musicians a lot. I feel like if I had spent all that time and effort to master an instrument, I would think that it was my life's calling and I had to pursue it as a career. Has any of that stuff ever came into your life? I know you just graduated with a degree in a different thing, not music, right? So can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I was going to thank my mom for this real quick. I remember, I think I was 19. Okay, no, I was 21. And I had just listened to Ravi Shankar for the first time, and I'd already been pursuing guitar for a few years before this. And somewhere in my spontaneous mind, I was like, all right, I'm going to drop out of school, and I'm just going to move to India and learn sitar and pursue it. And kind of, like a career, just like, all right, that's my life path. Well, that didn't happen. I found my teacher, Indrajit Banerjee, in San Antonio, and actually ended up, studying with him in Austin for about the last 4 or 5 years. However, in that time, it's that's always been a difficult thought to pursue music as a career, because you kind of get like passion and then like career, money, where is this going to take me? Like all that can kind of get mixed together. So I really don't like to look at it as a career, but just kind of maybe let that happen naturally if that ever does occur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you spend hours and hours and hours doing this thing, right? And so, the normal, for me especially is I would feel like if I'm spending so much time doing this, it better pay me money or something, I should be able to transfer this skill into money. I don't know if that's, raised in a capitalist society or whatever, but so you're looking, that thought occurred to you, but now you just use it as a passion or an outlet, and if you make any money or it turns into a career, you're just letting that naturally happen?
I would love for it to turn into a career one day. The thing about music is it doesn't always flow. Like sometimes it's really there. Sometimes like it's not something that, I mean, it depends what kind of music you're making, but it's not something that you can always just push out. There's a part where like the creativity is flowing and content is there, and then there's a part where it's like I really need to sit with myself and like really feel that music and like let it come from a place that I'd want to even share or have that be part of like content of a career.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
It seems to be that a lot of artists always mention to get to the point to where they could be themselves, they had to like kind of almost sacrifice a little bit of that, a little piece of that, and then kind of get themselves noticed. And then that's why a lot of these, popular artists, their first album's very, sort of mainstream-ish, and then it kind of switches into this, other direction, and you always wonder, well, why they do that, well.
As far as them like turning it into a product and losing their real passion for what they were doing.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Losing part of themselves by marketing it?
In studying a little bit of this, it seems as though in order to get noticed, you have to make something that everybody will listen to. Once they know your name, I think that goes for any artist. Once your name is known, then it almost doesn't matter what you do. I mean, almost. You could go... Garth Brooks had a persona of Chris Gaines, who was this alternate singer.
Yeah.
That didn't go anywhere. That didn't work out for him very well. But it showed that he had a passion for music in a different direction than necessarily what he got popular doing. But he definitely, I think, is an example of somebody who had to kind of like sacrifice maybe to be somebody, to get himself out there. And, a pure somebody who is just doing it for enjoyment, I think, is rarer than someone who, is willing to sacrifice.
I think Alanis Morissette's first album was a product. But then when she broke through, the rest of her albums have been more from the heart. You know what I mean? I think they told her how to dress, how to wear her hair. They made her redo the song many times and even went, played it for a group to see what the response was, went back and did it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then once she made a name for herself, then she could put out her own stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's like if you want to make like maybe you want to make some like conscious music and you want to share that with a lot of people at some point, you're like, well, I've got to actually do something that a lot of people would end up listening to at the same time. If you want to be, I don't know, any kind of obscure band that's like just like shredding it, instrumental, maybe you have a really small fan base, but they're dedicated and like, and I think people's eyes you'd be like very genuine. But
yeah,
like, if you want to pursue as a career, you're almost forced to.
Yeah, because you got to pay rent.
Yeah,
right?
You got to make something that a large amount of people will listen to. And I think it's like finding that balance of, just being open, to how can I create something like conscious, like genuine, and also that I can share with a lot of people and that people are really going to like.
But I find, I read, widely in Law of Attraction and that kind of stuff, and I basically boiled it down to it's better to have more positive thoughts than negative thoughts. It's just, overall would make my life and my headspace a better place to be if I'm thinking positive. But I do think it's interesting that you had that thought of moving to India to find a teacher and then turning around and finding one here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was 21 living in Colorado and I heard Ravi Shankar for the first time and man, it's like instantly Cupid like struck me with an arrow. And already though, like kind of like you, Kylie, is I love Eastern tradition. I'm really passionate about meditation and yoga and like the healing and everything that's done to transform my life. So it's like, okay, I hear this music. It's like unlike anything I've ever heard. Really like the first time you hear a sitar or something like in that element. Like someone like Ravi Shankar does, just it took me to a whole new world. As like, man, starstruck, I'm gonna do it. Call mom, like going to India, and she's like, maybe that's not a good idea. You don't know anyone in India. You don't know. You never been there. Maybe you should think this through. I'm like, so all right, so I go back. Mother's wisdom. Thank God I listened. And so I go back and we just Google search sitar teachers. And happenstance, we find Indrajit Banerjee, who is, he's from Calcutta. He's actually of the lineage of Ravi Shankar. So his guru, Pandit Kartik Kumar, was the senior most disciple of Ravi Shankar. And as in to say, he was one of the only students that ever lived like with Ravi, like in his home, day in, day out. And so Indrajit comes from that tradition, and I found him, and he's been my teacher, and he's also been like family, and he's just so he's taken me under his wing and taught me the different ragas and just so much,
So what caused him to be in San Antonio? You found him in San Antonio?
Yeah, okay, so he
and you
sorry
were
if I
living in
butcher
Colorado.
this.
Yeah.
And you're
You were living in Colorado and you Googled it, but you're from San Antonio.
Okay, so I was living in Colorado. I moved back to San Antonio. My mom and I, we Googled it. He lives in Austin. I live in San Antonio. And so he's traveled, throughout all around Europe, India. I actually 2 years ago traveled with him to India, and got to see him do like a kind of Calcutta, Benares tour where he was playing concerts around India, and I was kind of just there on the side as his disciple, I guess, or just student, and got to see Indrajit in action. So that was really cool. And
how did you reach out to him? Like you emailed him, or what?
I actually called him and want to learn. He's like, all right, come to my house here, and I came. And when I first saw the sitar, like tried to hold it. I don't know if any of the viewers have not seen a sitar, Google search it, but it's massive, and you like cross your legs, and like it sits on one of your feet, like it sits on a single foot, and it's just like I could not have expected.
There's actually a picture of you playing the intro and the outro, on the intro and outro on the video, on YouTube, not obviously Spotify or anything like that.
Okay.
But, so when you went to India and you traveled and did the tour, did you see a lot? Was there a large audience that came to see him, or was it kind of smaller concerts? Because here, if you had like a smaller sort of venue, it might be like a bar or some sort of small venue like that.
So, like, at least in Calcutta, all India music radio, those words might be like in any order. Sure.
All Indian radio
music. So
all Radio India.
That is like in India, like that is classical music is so prevalent everywhere. And it's, I mean, of course, Bollywood is taking its, a huge leap and bound, but there's a lot of classical music in that as well, kind of mixed fusion. But the concerts, like I remember we were in Benares, and it's like 5 a.m. and like, the monks are doing their artis, their fire ceremony, all of the Brahmins at the Ganges, and it's like, dude, no one's gonna be awake for this, but I barely woke up for this, and I'm like going with them to the concert. And but no, a lot of people just from the streets, just come and listen, and there's a large audience.
So the concert started at 5 a.m.
5 for the sunrise.
Oh, for the sunrise. Okay, sunrise concert.
Uh-huh.
Well, so then that leads me into the first time you held the sitar was in his house, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I'm willing to bet if he's doing a sunrise concert, there has to be more. He was trying to teach you more than just music. Is there a spiritual aspect to playing the sitar?
So there absolutely is. And the spiritual aspect is what I've learned is it's a meditation, or like that's what it's become. And you can look at an instrument in many ways. Like I've looked at it as something I've got to master. I've looked at it as I got to hit all the right notes, and and now it's like I found like that doesn't really bring fulfillment. Like when I look at it like that. And the spiritual part, in India, there's many, or just in Eastern tradition, there's many ways to go to God. There's many rivers that lead to the ocean, so to speak. And music Indrajit has shared is a very potent one because you can get lost in it. You know, you literally get taken. And it kind of is like going back to like that primordial sound. Like everything is kind of music. It's like creation began. It's like everything is just nature's music. It's like you're kind of just tapping into that like that sound creation, you know? That's like the spiritual. I'm not saying like I've tapped into that, but
No, I mean that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, is this something that you're finding, or does he let his students kind of find this out on their own, or does he tell you in a spiritual aspect, or does he just present this is how you play, and you're gonna learn as you're trying to do this thing, you're gonna pick up on the spirituality of it, almost letting the music teach you the spirituality of it.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like there's only so much a teacher can lead you, and you gotta walk your own path. And I think what Indrajit is tried to do with me is just give me the best framework possible to either have, and that's the cool thing about Indrajit, and which I understand from his stories, or even just from like visiting India, seeing the culture, like he's always like had this room where I can explore. You know, like I've got an electric sitar, and that's kind of not so traditional. And like I know he's got an electric sitar, and that's very, that's very eclectic, I'd say, for maybe like classical Indian music to bring it electric. You know, and so there's kind of been a balance of structure. Like here's the raga, here's the time signature, here's the things you've got to hit. Like you got to bring it back to this, and also here's a whole new world that he's exploring in his music and has helped me explore my music. And yeah, it's phenomenal. And actually, if there's any viewers, check out the band Tosh, check out Sitarji, and these are some of Indrajit's works, kind of side projects as well. And you'll hear the electric sitar along with Naladri Kumar.
We'll put some links up for some of that.
Okay.
In learning, so you started off with the guitar and you moved to sitar. You were playing guitar for, you said, 4 or 5 years?
For like 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
And then you moved to sitar. Was it a huge jump? Was it like learning just completely, totally different instruments? Or did the stringed instruments sort of learning one and moving to another, you think that gave you a little bridge?
So so when like I play sitar like here, people usually think that, oh my god, like I could never learn that, like that looks so hard. I'm like, it's just as difficult or just as much effort as learning the guitar to start off with. Same thing, really. It's just the time you spend with it. It's like I feel with any, really with any art or anything, it's just the time and the effort you put in.
Do you still practice on the guitar? Or are you?
Oh yeah.
Really? So you play both instruments. Do you also play percussion or anything else? Or
No, I don't play percussion. I would love to. I bought some tablas, but actually, I took like a lesson. I was like, all right, I don't know if I'm gonna try and add a third instrument because I would like to really hone in on like the guitar and sitar, and instead of spreading my.
So I used to write a lot of poetry, right? And I could really tell the difference between when it was coming from my head and when it was just flowing. And sometimes it would be rough, I had to sit down and keep my butt there and keep just trying and working out at it. But then eventually I would break through into this whole other area where it was just kind of like flowing out of me. It was almost like somebody else was writing the poetry, In fact, years later, over time, I had people like read things to me that I had written, and I had no memory of even writing those things, And I was like, that's awesome. Who wrote that? And they're like, no, you did. I'm like, oh, wow, that's weird. So have you ever been like playing and you thinking you're just practicing and suddenly it's no longer coming from the head?
So many times, yes. And probably so many more times, no.
Okay.
It's always, like when I recorded this for y'all, I mean, I felt like that was like a time where it was just flowing out. And it seems like when you surrender it's like you can't force yourself to surrender. It's kind of something you just gradually ease into. And that's really where it flows. But honestly, I find that yes, with sitar, guitar, like that absolutely happens. But also kind of like a little similar to poetry is one of the other things is like freestyle rap or poetry. Like that's another form of like, I guess like as a artist, like when I feel stagnant, like that's something that I find is like really helpful.
So not playing something that you'd already worked on, just experimenting with the strings.
Yeah, or like if like say for instance sitar is getting stagnant, to find a different outlet. Like okay, start freestyle rapping or something, and just on the topic of like how things flow.
Yeah, definitely.
That makes...
So when you're playing music, you're creating a sort of sound waves, right? So the sound waves are moving out, and you feel like when you go to a concert, you actually physically feel the music. In fact, at least to some concerts I've been to, when you really feel like you're into it, the hairs on your arms will stand up, or the back of your neck, and it almost feels like the sound waves are moving over your body, and sort of connecting with that. So if you're on a stage in front of people, or you're sitting and playing in front of people, do you physically feel those kind of sound waves, or are you visualizing anything like some visualized colors that can be associated to sound waves, to the kind of combination between your vibrations and the natural vibrations around you? Is that something that you make any sort of connection with? Or
have you ever seen the artists who like they're on stage, like the guitar players, and they're like kind of mouthing like they're doing something with their mouth while they're playing?
Definitely.
I find like if I'm like in the zone, that's kind of where I'll be. Like I can't say I really visualize things, but like I'll almost like hear it as if it's like I'm like mouthing it. Like I like it's like a language being spoken.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like and I really like when I just see like different musicians who are like, especially I'd say like I don't know, maybe like some lead guitar players or something. Like I'll see like this kind of funny thing like they'll do it with their mouth. It's like they're like speaking a language. So that's I'm not like seeing anything really like visually, but it's like to me it's most like a language and like letting that language come through.
Yeah, because that's actually through history almost been a language between people, has been music. Even when they didn't understand the spoken languages, they would understand
Definitely
the music that somebody might be making, or musical instruments, or maybe they might have even created the same musical instruments but didn't realize it. I think when scientists talk about finding life on other planets, and they say that math is the only true nature's only true language, single language, I think music kind of taps into that, because math and music are very similar, in the fact that you have those, continuous beats, or the rhythm, waves of information, that same sort of, kind of communication. So math is music is math. It's the same, it runs along the same thing.
I just had this vision in my head of going to Mars, and the people living there not, trusting us, and we pull out a banjo.
That's pretty good. Well,
but I was thinking, that's kind of far fetched. But what I was saying is, you could go into a people that don't, trust you, right? But if you pull out a musical instrument and start playing it, there's an instant connection there, right? That is real.
In the movie Close Encounters, that's what they do. Is they flash lights and have tones that play, and that's how they communicate with each other. So they have the spaceship and they have the humans, and that's how they're talking to each other, because there's a connection. There's a
sound and light.
It's mathematics. It's.
Well, what do you think of humanity? Like we sent out that
the SETI or something like that.
The SETI, yeah, it had like the 40 or whatever all those songs. Like, what do you think is like?
Yeah, it was an anodized disc put on Voyager 1 and 2, and it was hello in 47 languages. It was, I think, Mozart and Bach. It on the disc, it actually showed it showed our place in the solar system and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that's sending music. I think is a great way. Even think of Morse code. Morse code is a very simple, but it's almost musical when you listen to it. It has bleeps and spaces, and there's a rhythm to it that I think it's not. It is artistic, but it's artistic in the same way that everything that we do that creates pleasure in the world is artistic.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a way to communicate. So when an artist writes a song, I'm sure they're thinking of something when they're writing it, and they're communicating that via the music or the lyrics or whatever it might be to share with someone else. Here's where I'm at. Sometimes it's more poetic, where it doesn't really seem to make as much sense to some people as others. Sometimes it's very much in your face, very much, this happened to me last Tuesday, da 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 da, kind of thing. So, I mean, is that something that you feel when you write music, that you feel like you're kind of trying to communicate something?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's like I don't even know. Yeah, it's like, what am I trying to communicate right now? And I think music is good for just that, letting you, kind of helping you communicate those things that are kind of hard to communicate. And yeah.
Do you come from a musical family?
Oh, my cousin.
Your cousin does?
Yeah,
What
my
is?
younger cousin. She plays the violin.
Oh, the violin. That's a beautiful instrument, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like what you said earlier about almost maybe one of the first things to come into existence, if you believe in the Big Bang, there had to be sound, right? From, we don't know what was pre-Big Bang, probably another Big Bang, but just, eruption of, some type of substance had to make a sound, right? So, like, the physical things that we see might be some kind of sound in a concrete way. I don't know if I'm articulating myself well, but we know things travel as a wave and as particles. So it's almost like things are running on their own vibration. So we may be the concrete form of that vibration of the original sound. I used to do a lot of drugs in the 60s, so you got to excuse me.
Well, I think that's a good point, though, because they've recently discovered that gravity actually works in a wave form instead of this sort of, I don't know what they thought it was before, but so everything is...
Oh, gravity does?
Yeah, so every sort of action either has a outcome of some sort of vibration or it receives some sort of vibration. So our communication, even things like where they say the tree fell in the forest, did it make a noise if there was nobody there? Yes, it makes a noise, but if nobody's there to perceive it as, that might be different, but it still creates those waves. It still creates even waves in gravity. Even the smallest instance of something will create even the smallest wave of gravity.
And do sound waves ever stop? Are they always, if you make a sound, they continue forever? That vibration.
Those sound waves work in the same way that water waves do.
Oh, okay.
So eventually they will become nothing, but that sound wave created a gravity wave that might not be perceived the same way, but eventually, and I don't. That's above our knowledge. I don't know what. I'm sure it might end at some point, considering the vastness of the universe.
Right.
But who really, who knows? We can't even really get off of this planet successfully. So, but
are you denying the moon landing?
No, that was successful.
Are you a
You're
moon
right.
denier?
You're right. That was successful, but we haven't done much since.
Okay.
So we haven't done, but you're
So
right.
I'm wondering about the actual process of playing. Can you tell us about what are some technical things about the sitar? Is it named? Is it 3 different pieces, or is it one piece? And what are the notes called? And any technical things you could tell us about the sitar?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that had been mentioned earlier about time and well, okay, what I was going to describe is in sitar playing, there is a pattern that you follow, and it starts with something called a lop. And what this is it is like a formless kind of improvisation of within the scale of the raga that you're going to be playing in. So the sitar, so okay, if you see a sitar, as for like the technical, like, you know, so it's made out of a pumpkin gourd, the base of it, and then going up is just like metal rings, and you can move them, and there's a scale, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, and there's you can sharpen the notes by moving up those frets. But that's kind of as far as the structure of the sitar goes. And then as for the playing, yeah, it goes from a lop into so the lop goes from freeform to sounding more like the raga. So you start to add in actual phrases that you might use within the raga. And then it finally goes into the full-fledged, like what we would, I think, understand as a song. You know, the raga itself. And like within the raga, so at first there's like kind of formlessness, and then there's structure, and it'll usually go in different time scale patterns. You know, the tabla has got teen tall, which is like a 16 beat cycle, and there's so many different cycles. It gets very specific.
No, really?
Oh yeah, and there's actually like different times of the day, like there's like holy text and stuff written on this, like that, okay, you should only play these ragas at this time. Like I have a whole book, I'll bring it to Woke House next week. It's like it shows all the ragas and what time you should play them. So it's like, and I remember like reading oh yeah, and if you play them at the times you're not supposed to, it's gonna decrease your health or something like that. And so I don't know, my health has definitely, I guess, been hit a few times. But
how old is this instrument?
Oh God.
So let me read this. It says the sitar flourished in the 16th and 17th centuries and arrived at it as its present form in the 18th century. Today, it is the dominant instrument in Hinduism music. Hindustani music. It is used as a solo instrument. Yeah, and basically it goes on from there. But yeah, it morphed into its present form in the 18th century.
18th century.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little newer than what we thought.
Totally.
But different variations of
I'm sure, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Variation of sitar. I mean, I think that those go much further back to the 18th century.
So let me ask you a question. This is something that, as an amateur, music aficionado, I don't play an instrument, but I find music very compelling and musicians very interesting. And so, like, when you're talking to another musician, even if they play a different instrument, do y'all kind of speak the same language when it comes to music? And I'll give you two examples of this, and this is my limiting understanding, right? So I didn't even know that phrase "count me in" was a musical expression. I literally learned that when I saw Nirvana play Unplugged, and they were talking about not having the drummer or anything up there, him just with his guitar, and he said, "No, I need somebody to count me in." So the guy in the back tapped off 1, 2, 3, and then he started. And so they were saying, "Count me in" is really a musical expression, and then also this other thing that I saw, this lady said, "How do you want me to sing the song?" And the composer said, "Peanut butter, da-na-na-na-na-na-na." And so she kind of like picked up the tune, and it was really, the song was "I Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." But she was asking, "In what tempo do you want me to sing it?" And he said, "Peanut butter, da 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 da." So do you find yourself ever talking to a musician and having kind of like some kind of language or phrasing or connection that you don't find with other people that aren't musicians?
Not necessarily, and that's where I think like the vibes come in, you know, like I think even like with different musicians, some, I mean, I click, and some it's like, man, I wish I don't want to be playing like at all
With
right
this
now.
person.
Yeah. Like
Oh,
in the
yeah.
moment, it's like, man, this, or like to feel like, oh man, they're really liking this music. And I'm like, I don't know, like I'm not really feeling it. It's like the connection can
When
be
you're jamming with somebody or what?
yeah, absolutely. And it's like kind of like yeah, it's where, you know, the vibes, like that connection, you know, is different, you know, with anyone, but like if with musicians for sure. I mean, I've just hit it off with some people where it's like this is like a match made in heaven. Like, oh my god, like songs are literally coming out, and others it's like it's like trying to push a mountain. And that's okay, you know, nothing wrong with that. Just that's just the way it happens, you know.
So you either vibe with the person or not. There's nothing you can say in language to help them, like, catch up to the right speed.
Yeah, you know, I think that there's totally something that you can. I think there's a total middle ground, you know, and you know, uh, but maybe you know, maybe just not every connection is strong. You know, some musicians just kind of just like anything. You know, you play a sport, you play really well with some people, you get it, and then uh, and maybe you know others, it takes a little bit extra work, but you aren't gonna lose all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some people, you play basketball better with somebody else or anything. Dance partners.
What is your view on music and technology? So, you know, like a big argument is Pro Tools. You know, how Pro Tools can make a singer out of anybody because you can alter it to a point to where they sound great. You know, there's been a lot of artists accused of that in the past. You think there's something lost there, or
Like auto-tune or what?
Like we're talking like T-Pain here, or
well, it's, you know, we're talking music in general.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your experience with it, you know, you could argue about rappers or any basic music, but there is a transfer when physically when you take music and you digitize it or you alter it. I mean, how do you feel? You've heard yourself play. I mean,
Yeah.
you heard what I edited for you. How does that make you feel, or what do you think about that? What are
I
your
think
thoughts
that
on it?
even goes into having a traditional instrument and then making it electric.
Certainly.
People could debate
Yeah.
you're
Uh-huh.
interfering with something there.
I think it's like, are you trying to camouflage something, or are you trying to create something? You know, are you like, is this something that's expanding your horizons, or is it kind of something to kind of, I don't know, like not do that?
Yeah. Like something you're trying to make yourself seem better
Uh-huh.
by using this technology
Yeah.
rather than creating something new and making it even better or amplifying something that's already good.
Because I don't like to judge people's music expressions. That's their own. I think that if they're coming from a place where they feel really good about it, they're genuine, then I'm all for it. You know, I think that there's definitely a lot of cases, like I could point to pop culture where it gets really, for my taste, and genuine. But you know, I mean, everything's kind of, it can be used for whatever purpose you put it towards.
Okay. Awesome. Well, okay, so we're going to do a little shorter podcast this week because we're actually going to put your music at the end of it.
Yay.
So we're going to put like one of your songs, and I'll let you choose which one in there, and then I'll put a little description in there. You can kind of describe it or whatever, okay? So just in towards the end, if you want to talk a little bit about your next adventure, where you're headed, and anything that you would like to put out into the world about music.
And you don't have any YouTube videos out there, anything, do you?
No, I don't have any YouTube videos out there. I mean, I have like Adam Tudor. His name is A Servant of Love. I played on his album. You can
Okay.
check that out. I don't have a lot of work out there. And, you know, to be honest, I feel like that could be coming soon. I just, it's a precarious process. So
we invent words here all the time, so you're good.
Precarious. And so it could be coming in the future. My next step, though, I'm actually spoiler, as I'm going to be actually moving back to India soon.
Woo.
And I'm actually applying to be an English teacher. However, with that, my intention is to really hone in on music and just the things that bring me closer to that spiritual space. I say with music. I don't know if I like to use that word, but yeah.
So are you gonna move to Colorado and then you're gonna move to India, or what?
I'll tell you about that after.
Okay.
And then anything that you want to say about music, what it's brought to you, how you feel about it, if you wanted to advise anybody on anything.
I feel like music to me it's a medicine, it's a tonic, it's a celebration, and I would invite people to find the music that is like that for them. What's the music you're listening to? Is it acting in your life like a music or like a tonic, a medicine, celebration? And there's a lot of music out there that can really bring you down, and that's just the reality of it. And so that's it. Like what do you put it in between your ears? Because it goes straight. It's all happening between your ears, right, Kylie?
That's right. I think so.
Awesome. Well, we thank you very much for coming by and talking to us. We hope you keep up with us and let us know how you're doing. So I'm going to throw this over to Kylie to talk about Woke House for just a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Forrest. I think it was a great show. I appreciate you being here. Woke House, the website is woke-house.org. We're a Buddhist group that meet on Saturday from 10 to 12 in San Antonio, Texas. Look us up. We got a website, all that great stuff. But other than that, I'm Kylie. I'm the monk.
And I'm the mechanic, Josh. And thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.